The familiar path becomes strange. Imagine a gentle afternoon as you walk down a path so familiar that you could close your eyes and still remember every curve. The breeze feels the same, the trees stand where they always have, yet something in the air is different. Each step you take echoes like the rhythm of a song played by no one. You do not know why, only that your heart has grown still, and a quiet presence walks beside your breath. The ancients once said that the greatest turns of life often arrive in the most ordinary clothes. They do not knock with thunder nor wear the label of miracles. They simply step in softly between your everyday breaths. In that moment, something invites you to stop and listen, not to search for signs in the sky, but to hear a whisper beneath the skin of the earth. Perhaps it is your own heartbeat, or perhaps it is the pulse of another world weaving through this one. When you allow the mind to rest from its constant measuring, the path widens, the light softens, and for a brief instant you cannot tell where the boundary lies between inside and outside, between you and life itself. Then an imagined companion appears, not divine, just a presence as familiar as any friend you have ever met. They walk beside you slowly, saying nothing profound, only asking a simple question: what are you carrying in your heart today? The question stops you. You mean to answer quickly, yet somehow the words pour out beyond what you intended. It seems that when someone truly listens, the silent chambers within us begin to open. You feel that this presence has not come to teach, but to walk with you, to draw you out of the whirlpool of repeating thoughts. And then you realize the sacred does not appear in blazing light upon a mountain, but in the gentle warmth of an ordinary afternoon. The miracle is not in its form, but in the way we recognize it. As this awareness flickers to life, the old path turns into a temple. Every stone beneath your feet feels sanctified by attention. Every breath becomes a prayer. And within that quiet space you hear a soft yet unmistakable command: look again, for what you are seeking has never left you. The silent companion. That afternoon you kept walking, and your companion remained beside you. They did not speak much, did not explain, only listened. The wind whispered through the leaves, blending with the rhythm of your breaths, and within that quiet, something deeper began to unfold. When the mind grows still, we start to see that every encounter carries a message from the unseen depth of life. This companion does not ask about great dreams nor distant plans, only asks, right now, in your heart, what is alive? A question so simple it seems meaningless, yet it is the key that unlocks a door you once sealed tight. For when we stop explaining and truly look within, the smallest voices of the soul begin to rise. You answer slowly, hesitantly, with fear and weariness, yet the more you speak, the lighter you feel. Perhaps because the one beside you does not interrupt, does not rush to advise or correct. They simply listen, and their silence becomes a mirror through which you see yourself more clearly. That is how sacred energy moves, not by pushing or preaching, but by staying gently, patiently, like a friend sitting by the fire waiting for you to notice the warmth. We have long believed the sacred must arrive in blinding light and the music of angels. Yet you begin to sense that this presence may wear the most ordinary face, speak with the most familiar voice. It may be a co-worker smiling, a stranger holding the door, or the quiet of a Monday morning. The sacred needs no proof, it only needs to be recognized. And recognition is the work of the heart, not the eyes. The companion looks at you and says, there are times when God walks beside you and you do not know it, not because he hides, but because you have defined him by what he never needed to be. The words fall like rain on dry earth. You suddenly understand why emptiness once filled your days, because you searched for the divine in distant rituals and grand promises, forgetting that it was already present in every small breath. That is the first moment of awakening, the realization that presence has never left, only that you were looking elsewhere. You both keep walking, unhurried, each step becoming a silent prayer. Every breeze that touches the ground seems to answer, I am still here. You no longer need to speak, for every question is already answered by the simple nearness of this presence. Perhaps it is only a shadow, perhaps an imagining, Yet in that instant you know one truth: you are no longer alone on this path. The companion turns to you, smiling without words, and for a moment the world grows still. Perhaps this is how the divine speaks, not through sound, but through the feeling of belonging. When you lift your eyes, the sky seems brighter, not because the light has changed, but because the heart has opened. And now I ask you, the one listening to this story, how many times have you overlooked a small thing, a glance, a gesture, only to realize later that perhaps it was there the divine had touched you? Have you ever walked among a crowd believing yourself alone while an unseen friend was quietly walking with you? If you have ever felt that way, leave just one word: yes, so I may know that on this path I am not walking alone. The lesson from those who did not recognize: they had walked that road many times, the disciples of Christ, those who had seen miracles, heard his words, and believed they understood everything. Yet that day when he walked beside them, they did not recognize him. They were lost in grief, in memories of loss and death, so consumed by despair that they could not imagine life was still walking with them. The scriptures say their eyes were kept from seeing, but what blinded them was not darkness, it was the light of their old expectations. They were waiting for a majestic Savior crowned in glory, and so they could not see the Spirit in the form of an ordinary companion. If we are honest, we are no different. We too walk our own roads to Emmaus, passing countless moments of divine presence without seeing them. We think we are awake, yet we dream about how grace should appear. We pray for a sign, and when it comes in another form, we overlook it. Because we have confined the sacred to a narrow image, it must look like victory. It must shine brightly. It must come as something extraordinary. The beauty of the Emmaus story is not in the miracle, but in the way Christ chose to walk beside sorrow. He did not scold them for failing to see. He did not rush to reveal his name. He simply asked what they were talking about, and he listened. He let them speak their sadness. Let them hear their own despair. That is the art of presence. Silent yet full, when a soul realizes what it needs is not instruction, but companionship. Perhaps each of us must walk that same stretch of road, where we think we have been abandoned, but are in fact being accompanied, where we believe everything has ended, but something new is just beginning. The road to Emmaus is the inner journey of every soul. We see Christ not when we search for him out there, but when we begin to feel his warmth within. You may remember moments in your life when a stranger said something you never forgot, when a song played at the exact time you needed it, or when a soft word changed your path. Those moments were not accidents. They were your small Emmaus encounters, times when the divine walked beside you without a title, without a robe, carrying only love and patience. This story also speaks of the eyes of the soul. Some see miracles every day because they look with the heart. Others pass through life seeing nothing because they rely only on reason. The eyes of the soul do not open through knowledge, but through humility. When you stop demanding, you begin to perceive. When you stop searching for the sacred far away, you begin to see it in every breath. The unnamed companion on the road to Emmaus still walks beside you today. All you must do is lift your eyes from the clouds of worry, and you will see. Sometimes the sign is not a blazing light, but the soft easing of a fear. Not a voice from heaven, but the quiet that returns to your heart after many storms. That is how the divine says it is still here. The story of Emmaus reminds us that recognition is a choice. You may walk with the Spirit and not know it, or you may stop, look around, and whisper, "You are still here." When you choose to see, the whole world changes color. For the true miracle is not that Christ appeared, but that at last we are ready to see. So if today you feel alone, pause a moment on your familiar path. Ask yourself, is someone walking with me whom I have not yet seen? It may be a friend, a memory, a quiet light in your heart. Do not be quick to believe the sacred has left you. Perhaps it has only slowed its steps, so you might turn and see. When expectation becomes a veil over the light. Every person carries within them an image of the divine. Some believe it must come with thunder and lightning. Others believe it can only be found in a church, in the solemnity of sacred rituals. Yet that very image, the portrait we create from our limited beliefs and experiences, can become the veil that covers the eyes of the soul. When we demand that the source appear exactly as we imagine, we unknowingly reject all other ways grace could arrive. Expectation itself is not wrong. It is the direction of the mind, the quiet affirmation that we still believe. But when expectation hardens into attachment, it blinds us to the other faces of light. When we insist that happiness must look a certain way, true joy, standing quietly beside us, becomes invisible. When we believe the sacred exists only in silence, we mistake the challenges sent to teach faith as punishment. And so, the light remains. Only our eyes refuse to open. Imagine two people walking under an afternoon rain. One feels only irritation, frustrated by broken plans. The other lifts their head, feeling the drops touch their skin, and whispers, "This too is a miracle." The rain is the same, only the vision differs. The difference lies in the expectation each carries. On the road to Emmaus, the two followers of truth were the same. They longed for a glorious and powerful Messiah, and when he walked beside them as a stranger, they could not recognize him. They had written a script for grace, and when it unfolded differently, they assumed the Spirit was absent. They did not know that their disappointment itself could become a doorway to revelation, if only they would let go of their own design. How many times in your life have you done the same? You prayed for a door to open, but when a smaller path appeared, you turned away. You asked for a miracle, yet when a stranger spoke a kind word, you dismissed it as coincidence. Not because the divine was hiding, but because you had confined it within your imagination. The law of mind always works. What you expect becomes what you see. When you expect presence only in bright light, you miss the gentle glow of a peaceful afternoon. When you look for the sacred only in success, you overlook the hand that steadies you in failure. When you seek only calm, you forget that sometimes disruption opens a new way for the soul. Rigid expectation blocks the flow, while open faith lets life move freely. Letting go of expectation does not mean denying desire. It means trusting more deeply. It means no longer demanding form, but knowing that presence always understands what you need and will appear in the most fitting way. Then every breath, every word, every small gesture of the day can become a doorway. You no longer guard one narrow gate, but open every path for the light to enter. To recognize the divine does not require sharp eyes, only a soft heart, a heart that can wait without demand, believe without control. When you live in that state, expectation becomes hope, and hope opens new vision. You begin to notice the signs once overlooked, a gentle word, a story overheard, a delay that leads you to perfect timing. Nothing is random. Everything carries meaning. Then the source needs no change of form to reveal itself. It is you who changes the way you see. Expectation is no longer a wall, but a window. The light is never far. We simply need to draw the curtain aside. Before we close this part, I want to ask you, how many times have you passed by a miracle without seeing it? How many times have you longed for something extraordinary, while the extraordinary was already alive in your every breath? And in the simple words of those beside you, think back to a recent moment when something small softened your heart. Perhaps that was the source smiling at you through its most ordinary form, learning to turn expectation into expansive faith. Sometimes what keeps a person from touching a miracle is not a lack of faith, but the way they believe. Expectation that is too specific closes the mind, while expansive faith turns the mind into a field. A seed can only sprout when the soil is loosened and open to light, but ground that is hardened holds the seed without allowing it to bloom. In the same way, when you demand that life must give you exactly what you imagine, you are holding the seed of grace in frozen soil. But when you trust that the divine will come in the best way, you allow that seed to grow by the law of life. Joseph Murphy called this the law of living faith. Whatever you feel is real in your heart will take form in your world. When you feel that the presence of the source surrounds you, no matter the situation, the outer world begins to arrange itself to reflect that belief. You do not need to force anything, you only need to change the center of your feeling. Everything begins within, for the subconscious never knows how to say no. Yet for faith to live freely, you must learn to release conditions. When you say, "I will be at peace if this job succeeds," you bind yourself. When you say, I can only believe when I see a sign, you set a condition for the light, but light needs no condition. Peace does not come after you achieve something. It is the energy that allows you to achieve it. If you wait for happiness to follow results, you will never arrive. But if you plant faith first, results will come naturally, like fruit ripening in its season. Some ask, how can I let go of expectation and still believe? The answer is, shift from demanding to receiving. When you demand, you create limits. When you receive, you open the door. The one who demands says, I want this to happen exactly as I think. The one who receives says, I open my heart for the divine to express in the best way. That small difference changes the entire flow of energy. The mind has two layers. The conscious wants to control. The subconscious only reflects. The tighter the conscious holds, the more tense the subconscious becomes. But when the conscious relaxes, the subconscious finds space to act. That is why good things often come when you stop forcing. When you stop straining, the water starts to flow. When you stop trying to control, the unseen hand begins to arrange. The power of expansive faith lies not in what you think, but in the state you are in when you think it. If you pray in tension, you send out fear. If you pray in peace, you send out connection. The subconscious does not respond to words, but to vibration. So choose the vibration of gratitude, of trust, of allowing. Believe that what you need is already present, even if the eyes have not yet seen it. Expansive faith also teaches you to see the value in every event. When a door closes, it is not rejection, but redirection. When someone leaves, it is not loss, but space for new grace to enter. When a dream fades, perhaps from its ashes, something higher is being born. Everything serves your evolution if you look through the eyes of faith. Remember, the source never takes without giving something deeper. But if you hold too tightly, your hands cannot receive. Letting go is not giving up, it is allowing the good to take a fuller form. One of the simplest ways to transform expectation is to focus on the feeling of already having. Instead of praying, let me be at peace, say, I am at peace. Instead of saying, I want to be healed, affirm, health is flowing through me. When you speak this way, the subconscious receives the command in the present tense and brings it into reality. You do not speak to convince, you speak to align. The mind is a receiver. You only need to tune it to the right frequency. When faith expands, you begin to see the sacred in the small. You no longer wait for tomorrow to see miracles. Each morning as you wake, you look around and give thanks for the breath, the step, the love. That is the beginning of awareness. For when gratitude is present, everything ordinary becomes extraordinary. Try whispering, today I open my heart to receive. I trust that the divine is working through me, around me, for me. I do not force anything. I simply agree with the good. Then watch how gentle synchronicities begin to appear. A call at the right time, an idea that sparks, a friend reaching out. All are signs that life is flowing again. The truth is, you do not need to know how it will unfold. You only need to know that the law of mind never fails. What you think, feel, and believe, you will see. When you trust in the presence of the sacred in all things, you turn on the switch that lets light move through your world. And if today you feel ready, let these words be your affirmation. I am ready to change. I am ready to expand my faith. I am ready to see the sacred in the ordinary. And if you are listening, simply leave the number 1 to say that you too are agreeing. For every miracle begins with a silent agreement, the soul's quiet yes to the light knocking at its door. When sadness becomes a door to light, no one escapes the days when the heart feels heavy. There are moments when everything once certain seems to fall away, and you find yourself standing still, unsure of where you are. Yet it is exactly there, in emptiness and loss, in the feeling of being abandoned, that a sacred doorway hides. Because sadness, when rightly understood, is not the enemy of the soul. It is the quiet teacher that shows us how to look within. When the mind is in pain, the world grows small. Colors fade, sounds fall silent, even the wind feels heavy. But within that darkness, something waits, the ability to listen. When all outer noise has quieted, the soul begins to whisper. You no longer have the strength to pretend, and the masks slowly fall away, leaving space for what is real to be heard. Joseph Murphy once wrote, "When the mind is wounded, it is calling for healing from the inner light. No pain is meaningless. Every wound is an invitation to return. When the heart breaks, you think love is lost, but in truth you are learning to love with the eyes of the soul. When a dream fades, you think you have failed, but you are being guided to a greater vision. When someone leaves, you think you are alone, but that is when you begin to hear the footsteps of the divine still walking beside you. Sadness can make you close, but it can also make you open. It is like a long night, where light has not vanished, but is only hidden. If you do not rush to drive it away, if you are willing to sit still in that darkness, you will see a faint light waiting deep inside. That light is the awareness that you have never truly been abandoned. In your deepest sorrow, presence is still there, silent and patient, waiting for your nod. What most people do is run from sadness. They try to cover it with work, laughter, or distraction. Yet the more they run, the more it follows, because its purpose is not complete. Sadness leaves only when it has been understood. It does not come to punish, but to purify. It strips away the old skin of false belief so that within it a new seed of strength can grow. Try to see your sadness with different eyes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this teaching me about myself?" The moment you ask that question, the energy of pain begins to shift. It ceases to be a wall and becomes a doorway to understanding. In those hours, do not force yourself to be brave. Allow yourself to be weak, but with awareness. Let the tears fall, but do not let your spirit collapse. Remember, it is in the breaking of the heart that the divine can enter through the cracks. For if you were perfectly sealed, no light could come through. Many believe they must stop being sad before they can have faith. But the miracle is that faith does not need sadness to leave. It only needs a small opening to shine through. When you say, "I do not understand, but I still believe there is meaning in this," you open the door to grace. Sometimes the miracle does not come as a change of circumstance, but as peace in the middle of pain. That is when your heart quietly says, "I do not need to know everything, I only need to know. You are here." Sadness is like the rain needed for the earth. Without rain, the seed will not sprout. Without the wet season, no green will grow. The tears you shed are not in vain. They wash away what no longer serves you. After every rain, your soul becomes softer, and in that softness, grace can enter. When you realize this, you no longer fear sadness. You know that each time it comes, something new is about to be born. You begin to listen more deeply, move more slowly, and notice that even among tears, there is a gentle light. You do not need to chase sadness away, only sit with it until it dissolves. In that presence, the miracle has already begun. If today you are walking through such a season, remember you are not alone. The divine does not ask you to be cheerful right away, only not to close your heart. Allow the light to work within you, gently as a breeze passing through a half-open door. Leave your heart open just a little, and that is enough. The light will find its way in, and when it does, you will see that sadness was never an enemy, but a faithful friend. It led you back to your deeper self. It taught you that faith is not never falling, but learning to rise even while trembling. Let the tears fall, and after each one, whisper softly, "I know this is not the end. This is only a turning page to help me see the light within more clearly." Then you will see, as that light begins to spread, the world around you brightens too, not because it has changed, but because your eyes have been washed clean by your own tears. And that is the beginning of awakening, when sadness becomes the bridge between the human and the divine, the subtle language of the heart. There is a kind of language that every soul understands, yet almost no one is taught. It has no sound, no letters, and needs no translation. It is the language of the heart. The heart knows before the mind can think. It feels truth before words can name it. When you learn to listen to this language, you begin to see the divine in places that once seemed ordinary. The heart does not use logic, it perceives through vibration. When something is right for you, the body responds. You feel warmth in your chest, your breath becomes lighter, and clarity rises within you, even if the mind cannot explain why. That is how the Source speaks to you. Deep within, every soul has its own frequency, and when truth touches that frequency, it begins to vibrate. Joseph Murphy once said that the subconscious speaks to us not through words, but through feeling. When you feel peace, even without an answer, that is the nod of your soul. When you sense doubt, though everything looks perfect, that is the gentle warning of intuition. The soul is always speaking, but we only hear it when we are still. So the first step to understanding the language of the heart is to learn to be silent. Silence is more than the absence of sound. It is the state in which the mind no longer struggles to win or prove. When the mind is still, you begin to notice signals as subtle as breath. In that moment, you realize the sacred presence has never left, only that the noise in your head has drowned its voice. The heart has its own intelligence, one older than any reasoning. Many times you have known something was right before you had proof. You knew which direction to take, who was sincere, when to stop, but you dismissed it as being too emotional. That is how we lose our connection to the soul. The language of the heart does not judge or demand, it simply guides. It speaks through the feeling of expansion or contraction. When something is right, you feel open. When something is wrong, you feel tight. Trust that signal more than 1,000 opinions, because the heart does not lie. It is the doorway of the divine within you. Learning to listen to the heart is not a lesson in emotion, it is a lesson in presence. You cannot hear while rushing, you cannot feel while trying to prove. Learn to pause, take a few deep breaths, place your hand on your chest and ask, what am I truly feeling right now? Do not try to find an answer. Let the feeling rise and fall like waves. Soon a small signal will come, perhaps a sense of ease, a tear, or a deep sigh. That is the first word of the heart. The heart speaks in simplicity. A sincere smile, a comforting look, a quiet moment between two people can carry more truth than a long sermon. When you are tuned to love, you begin to hear with your whole being. Every cell becomes an ear. Every breath becomes a prayer. Everything around you, the sound of birds, the light, the wind, even the noise of the street, turns into the rhythm of the universe speaking to you. Sometimes the sacred appears as a kind word from a stranger, sometimes as a song that plays at the perfect time, or the calm that suddenly washes over you in the middle of your day. All are messages from the Source, sent through the subtle language the heart understands. Yet this language has one rule: it only speaks truth. When the heart awakens, it not only comforts, it also illuminates the shadows. It asks you to release what no longer fits and face what you have avoided. This is not judgment, but healing. So, when you hear the inner call, do not fear if it asks for change. The heart will never guide you toward harm. It only leads you back to what is true. The language of the heart is the language of freedom. It does not make you obey. It reminds you of your inner wisdom. When the heart leads, you are no longer driven by fear or opinion. You act with quiet confidence, not loud, not showy, but steady. That is when you know you are living in harmony with the law of life, supported by the sacred in all you do. Practice listening to that language each day. When you wake, take a few moments to feel your breath. When you speak, notice your chest. Does it open or close? When faced with a decision, do not rush to reason. Ask your heart, does this bring peace or disturbance? The answer will come in stillness, and when it does, trust it. Do not let the mind deny what the soul has confirmed. In this world, there are millions of languages, yet only one that truly allows people to understand each other: the language of the heart. It does not divide by color, religion, or status. A hug, a look, a sincere word can break all barriers. When you learn to speak this language, you become a bearer of light. You do not need to preach, only to be present. Then you will see that the divine is not a voice from the sky, but a whisper within every heart, the whisper of life, of love, of truth. When you hear it, you no longer need to search for the source, for you have already found it, beating quietly within your own chest, recognizing the divine within. Every spiritual journey leads in the same direction, from the outer to the inner, from symbols, teachings, temples, and statues, back to the silent space within, where knowing exists without words and faith exists without proof. There, what you seek is no longer a distant being, but the very life flowing through you. Joseph Murphy called this the law of mind, the principle that every thought, belief, and inner image becomes a command to reality. When you understand this law, you realize the divine is not only in heaven, but in the breath of your own consciousness. Humanity often believes the divine arrives only when called, yet it has never departed. It is not a visitor who comes and goes, but the underlying energy within every heartbeat. What we call God, Buddha, Source, or Life are simply different names for the same essence, the pure awareness within. When you realize this, separation dissolves, and the search ends in recognition. I and the Source are one. Why then is it so hard to see what is so simple? Because the human mind is always reaching outward. We have learned to look for power in forms, to trust the voices of others more than the whisper within. We believe the sacred is far away, and so we keep searching, forgetting that every breath is already the answer. Recognizing the divine within is not learning something new, but unlearning what is false, the fears, the guilt, the judgments, and the limited images we hold of ourselves. The law of mind teaches that whatever you believe to be true within will become true without. If you believe you are small, your world will reflect smallness. If you believe you are loved, love will appear everywhere. The source does not favor, it only reflects, as a mirror faithfully echoes your belief. The path to the sacred, then, is not through pleading, but through alignment. Imagine your mind as a garden. The subconscious is the soil, and the conscious mind is the sower. If you plant seeds of fear, the soil will still nurture them until fear covers the field. If you plant seeds of trust, that same soil will grow trust into reality. This law never sleeps. It works day and night, whether you believe in it or not. To recognize the divine within is to become a conscious gardener, choosing the seeds you plant. The divine within is not a moral figure or a religious image, but pure creative power. Each time you imagine something good and feel it as real, you allow that power to move. When you pray, you are not sending words to the sky. You are speaking to your subconscious, to the higher self within, and that part of you responds. When you say, I am strong, you awaken strength. When you say, I am loved, you open the door to love. When you say, I am not alone, you affirm the companionship of the divine. This presence does not need grand miracles to prove itself, because the true miracle is already happening in every breath, every heartbeat, the perfect rhythm of nature, and the awareness that observes it all. When you pause, listen, and feel your breath, you are already meeting the divine. It is not beyond reach, it is the life within every cell. Joseph Murphy once wrote, what you seek outside is only the reflection of what you carry within. So when you long for light, remember the light is already in you. When you search for love, know that your capacity to love is the proof of what you seek. And when you ask for guidance, listen to the quiet voice in your heart, where the divine still whispers, be still, for I am here. Recognizing the divine within does not pull you away from the world, it makes you love life more deeply. You begin to see holiness in small things, making a cup of tea, caring for someone, completing a simple task. Every act becomes a prayer. You do not need to leave the world to find the source. You bring the source into the world through your presence. Begin each morning with this affirmation, the divine lives within me. Strength, wisdom, love, and peace are working through me. I and the source are one. Speak slowly, feel each word until your heart vibrates. It is not a mantra, it is truth. Each time you remember it, you strengthen your channel to the light. Gradually you realize that every encounter, every challenge, every joy is the dialogue between you and the sacred part of yourself. When someone angers you, it is a lesson in compassion. When you fail, it is a lesson in patience. When you love, it is proof of the divinity within you. Nothing is outside the classroom of the soul. Recognizing the divine within is the greatest turning point in human life. From that moment, you no longer live in fear but in understanding. You no longer beg but cooperate. You no longer search, but create. And you know that no matter how life changes, the light cannot be lost. It may be hidden by clouds, but the moment you turn inward, the sky is clear again. The sacred in the ordinary. One common mistake people make is believing that the divine exists only in temples, on mountaintops, or during hours of prayer. They kneel to meet the source, then rise and forget that it still walks beside them through the market, the streets, the noise of daily life. But, as Joseph Murphy often emphasized, everything sacred is happening within the most ordinary moments. Your hands washing dishes, your voice speaking to someone you love, your eyes meeting a stranger's glance, all can become sacred rituals when you are fully present within them. Those who understand the law of mind do not search for miracles afar. They see them in boiling water, in a blooming flower, in the steady beat of their heart. They know that life is never separate from the sacred, only the mind is separated from awareness. When you bring that awareness into every action, you begin to sanctify your life, not through ceremony, but through the energy of attention and love. To be sacred in the ordinary is to know how to pause and give thanks. To give thanks for the morning cup of tea, for the body still working, for the people around you, whether they bring joy or teach patience. Gratitude is a moving altar. Wherever you carry it becomes a temple. Many seek the source in the extraordinary, in glowing visions, forgetting that the true miracle is simply to live, to love, to breathe. The sacred is not measured by grandeur, but by depth of awareness. A simple meal cooked with love and presence can be holier than 1,000 prayers recited without heart. In work, when you pour your full being into what you do, not from fear or to prove, but from a desire to serve, divine energy begins to flow. You are no longer merely working, you are offering. Each word, each decision, each conversation becomes a vessel of light. The source does not distinguish between great and small deeds, only between how much love you place into them. In family, the sacred is not found in moral lectures, but in the way you listen, the way you stay silent when needed, the way you apologize when wrong. When you hold your child with a peaceful heart, you give them the unspoken faith that life is safe. When you look at your partner with full presence, you are seeing through the eyes of the divine. No prayer is needed, for that love itself is living prayer. Look around, how many miracles are unfolding unnoticed. The sun rises each morning, whether you notice or not. Your heart keeps beating, whether you feel grateful or not. Rivers flow, trees grow, and the sacred continues its work through the simplest forms. Awakening is not creating something new, but recognizing what already is. Some ask, how can I feel the sacred when I am burdened with work, bills, and responsibilities? The answer is by pausing within them. The sacred is not found by leaving the world, but by remaining in it without being pulled away. Stop for a moment in your busy day, take a deep breath, and whisper, the source is still here. In that pause, you open a small window in the walls of routine. The sacred in the ordinary also lives in the power to rename things. When you call something a burden, it grows heavy. When you call it an opportunity to serve, its energy shifts. When you say, I have to do this, you feel weary. When you say, I get to do this, your heart opens. The law of mind works most strongly through words, for words are thoughts made visible. Every word you choose is a vibration of the soul. Two people can wash dishes, one feels tired, the other feels peaceful. The difference lies in awareness. If your mind is elsewhere, you touch only matter. But if you wash dishes while feeling grateful for water, for hands, for time, you are touching the sacred itself. You are touching life. When you recognize the sacred in the ordinary, you no longer divide life into sacred time and mundane time. Every moment becomes holy. When you work, it is active meditation. When you rest, it is still meditation. When you love, it is prayer. When you are silent, it is listening to the source breathing through you. And then you will see the divine is not above, but right where you stand. The table, the chair, the light, the face before you, all are covered by the same current of energy. When this awareness becomes a habit, life changes color. There are no moments that are only ordinary, because you have learned to see through the eyes of spirit. the eyes that recognize the source in all things. Before we close this reflection, let me ask you, how long has it been since you truly ate a meal without your phone? Since you looked closely at your loved one without rushing? Since you paused in a crowded street to feel that you are alive? If it has been too long, promise yourself this today, just once. Do one ordinary thing with your whole heart. Breathe slowly. Smile gently. Say thank you. And as you do, you will understand the sacred was never far away. It has been here all along. In every moment you are fully present. The act of generosity. There is an unchanging law in the universe that Joseph Murphy called the law of circulation of life. Whatever you give always returns, not always through the same door, but always on the same frequency. Giving is not only a physical act, it is the circulation of energy between the soul and the world. When you give, you open the flow of the source. When you hold back, you block it within yourself. Generosity does not make you lose, it makes you whole. Those who understand this law know that each time they share a part of themselves, whether time, words, or presence, they are taking part in the sacred ritual of breaking bread. To break bread is to share life. In every piece offered there is breath, effort, love, and connection between hearts. When you give with awareness, you are performing the holiest act, turning matter into the expression of spirit. Many fear giving because they fear lack. Yet the paradox is that scarcity only appears when we stop sharing. When you give, you tell your subconscious, I have enough. When you close your hand, you tell it, I fear not having. And since the law of mind always reflects belief, it will make real what you think. Those who fear lack will see more lack. Those who know they have enough will always receive more. Giving is not limited to money. A kind word, an understanding glance, a patient silence when someone errs, all are forms of generosity. You may not be rich in things, but you are always rich in opportunities to be kind. A smile can shift someone's day. A hug can heal a lost soul. Every small act of compassion is a way for the source to be seen through you. Giving also does not mean losing. When you give with understanding, you do not diminish, you multiply. The energy of love expands. It is like a candle. When it lights another, its flame does not grow smaller, the room grows brighter. Each person you help, each heart you touch, is another light added to the world. Murphy once said, when you give what you wish to receive, you are sending a signal to the universe that you are ready to receive. You want love, give love first. You want understanding, listen to someone. You want opportunity, help someone see theirs. That is how you become a channel of the sacred. You do not have to create miracles, you simply let them flow through you. Yet there is one essential principle: give not to trade. When you give to be praised or rewarded, the energy is tied by condition. When you give from love, the energy is freed and magnified. The sacred always moves through hands that do not calculate. Watch a river. It does not keep water for itself. It gives endlessly, and that is why it never runs dry. When you become a river of generosity, your life too will overflow. Giving is how you prove your trust in the law of supply. You believe there is an infinite storehouse feeding all life, and you are simply its distributor. That belief makes you a channel of blessing. In every relationship, giving is the breath. When there is only receiving, love suffocates. When there is only giving without rest, you deplete. Balance lies here. Give with love and receive with gratitude. When someone offers you something, accept with a thankful heart, for you have given them the chance to practice generosity. Thus both souls rise together. The world today needs generosity more than ever, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet acts of daily kindness. Helping someone carry their load, taking a moment to listen, sharing what you know. These are the silent ways of turning the ordinary into sacred. You do not need to preach, only to act with light in your heart. The energy of love never disappears. It circles back to you in the most unexpected moments. When you live this way, you become living proof of a truth. Generosity is the purest form of faith. Only those who believe they are cared for dare to give. Only those who trust the source never runs out dare to open their hands. and in opening they discover their hands have been full all along. So today, if you are hearing these words, pause and ask yourself, what can I give to someone now? Perhaps just a smile, a thank you, or a kind message. Start small, for from the small, greatness grows. And when you give, let it come from love, not from duty. Remember, the world is changed not by promises, but by hearts that give. And if you want the light to flow stronger in your life, open your hand. Because when you give, you are saying to the universe, I am ready to change. And if you are listening and feel something stir within, simply leave the number 1. It is more than a symbol. It is an affirmation that you are ready to become a channel of the sacred, ready to give and to receive with gratitude. The inner flame. There are moments in life without fireworks, music, or radiant light, yet something deep within you changes forever. That is the moment when the inner flame is lit. No one can see it with their eyes, but you feel it in every breath and heartbeat. It does not come from the outer world, but from the very center of the soul, where the source dwells within you. The inner flame is not a burst of excitement. It is a quiet, steady awakening. It does not burn, it illuminates. It does not make noise, it spreads in silence. When this flame awakens, you no longer live by habit, but by awareness. Every action, word, and thought carries the light of consciousness. Murphy once said, when you align your mind with divine power, you step into the current of life. It feels like a warm current flowing through you, making everything clearer, purer, more alive. Fear, doubt, and darkness begin to dissolve like mist. You no longer need to try to be strong, because that energy itself becomes your natural strength. The wonder is that this flame often ignites at unexpected times, perhaps after a painful loss when you thought you were broken, perhaps in an ordinary morning as you make coffee and feel sudden gratitude, perhaps during silent prayer, or while watching sunlight fall through the leaves. Awakening rarely arrives with thunder. It comes as softly as breath, gentle yet undeniable. The inner flame is the sign that you have begun to live in the flow of the law of mind. You stop asking, is this real? And begin saying, I know this is real. Faith is no longer an idea, but a full-bodied knowing. When you say, I and the source are one, it is not words, it is truth felt through every cell. From that moment, the world changes color. What once seemed small becomes profound. A simple conversation can move you to tears. A stranger's glance can make you smile all day, because you no longer see with the old eyes, but through the light of the flame within. Yet this flame does not stay bright by emotion, but by care. Like an oil lamp, it must be fed by the oil of attention, the wind of gratitude, and the fuel of love. When you nourish your mind with uplifting thoughts, when you spend time in stillness, when you direct your energy toward goodness, the flame glows brighter. When you let fear, comparison, or judgment take over, it dims, it never dies, it only hides. Remember, the inner flame does not belong to you alone. It is the shared light of life, the flame of humanity. When you let it shine in you, you help the world shine too. Every act of love adds fuel to the collective fire. When you forgive, when you show kindness, when you speak encouragement, the light spreads a little more. And when millions do the same, the world's darkness loses ground. The inner flame is also a compass. When you listen to it, you know the right way. It does not lead you to success alone, but to integrity. Some choices give you less but keep you clear. Some give you more but cloud your spirit. The flame always guides you toward what is bright. It whispers, you cannot deceive your own light. And if you stay true to it, you will feel an invisible strength in every step. At times you may fear losing this flame, afraid that after feeling such clarity, your soul might grow cold again. Do not fear. The fire of the soul never goes out. It only asks you to return and breathe attention into it. Each time you forget, pause, take a deep breath, place your hand over your heart and say, the light is still here. That sentence is the breath that rekindles the ember into flame. Those who live with the inner flame no longer run from life. They walk into it with light in their eyes. They do not avoid darkness. They bring light into it. They do not demand perfection, They use light to see beauty in the broken. That is the sign of a mature soul, one that no longer needs to prove, only to be. And one day you will realize the inner flame is the source itself, seeing the world through you. You are not the keeper of the flame, you are the flame. Every experience, every tear, every joy is the fuel that makes it burn deeper, warmer, brighter. Knowing this, you stop fearing its loss, for you understand that you and the fire are one. People may take your job, your title, your possessions, but they cannot take the light within you unless you let them. That light belongs to the source. It is eternal, neither born nor destroyed, only changing form. And each time you remember it, each time you choose love over fear, forgiveness over anger, it rises again. Sit quietly for a moment now. Close your eyes, place your hand over your chest, and feel your heartbeat. Imagine each beat as a spark spreading through your body, filling the room, expanding into the space around you. Then whisper softly, "The light in me is alive. The light in me is guiding me. The light in me is the source itself." And you will know that the flame has never left. It has only waited for you to remember that you are still burning, removing the inner blindfold. There is no darkness more dangerous than the one we carry inside. It is not the night of the world, but the night of awareness, when the eyes remain open yet the heart is closed. Many live their whole lives as if looking through a thin veil, seeing everything but not truly seeing. They hear teachings, read sacred words, speak of faith, yet deep within them there remains an invisible layer, a veil woven of fear, judgment, and the old images they still hold of themselves. Joseph Murphy once wrote, "People do not see the world as it is, they see it as they think it is. The inner blindfold is made of those thoughts. It is woven from memories, experiences, wounds, and words once spoken by others. When you believe the world is harsh, you will find endless proof of its cruelty. When you believe you are unworthy, you will unconsciously reject what is good. What you call reality is only the mirror of your belief. Removing the blindfold is not about forcing yourself to think positively, but about having the courage to face the truth within. Ask yourself, what am I believing about life that keeps me from seeing the light? Perhaps you believe it is too late, that others are better, that the past defines the future. Each limiting belief is a single thread of the veil. You cannot tear it off all at once, but you can loosen it thread by thread through awareness. The first thread is doubt. Doubt is the mind's way of protecting you from disappointment, yet it also keeps you trapped in the familiar. Doubt says, "The divine cannot happen for me," but the law of mind does not play favorites. It answers belief, not identity. When you say, "I cannot," the subconscious does not argue. It obeys. When you say, "I believe there is a way," the subconscious opens and begins to arrange. Each time you choose trust over doubt, another layer of fog is lifted. The second thread is bitterness and resentment. You cannot hold light while clinging to darkness. When you carry old pain, your energy is tied to the past. Forgiveness is not about freeing others first. It is about freeing yourself. When you say, "I release them to the light," you cut the final string binding you to what was. Each act of forgiveness lets more light through. The third thread is the habit of judgment. When you look at others through the lens of right and wrong, better or worse, you also see yourself that way. The mind divides to feel safe, but the soul knows only unity is true. When you stop judging, you tell the source, "I trust that every soul is learning its lesson." That belief allows you to see with the eyes of love instead of fear, and part of the blindfold falls away. The fourth thread is fear of change. Many pray for light, yet when it comes, they fear to open their eyes. Light forces us to see more clearly, and the first thing it often shows is the shadow we've been hiding. But remember, light does not come to condemn, it comes to heal. When you allow it to shine, darkness fades on its own. You do not need to fight it, only to see. As each thread is released, the world begins to appear different. Everything is the same, yet you feel renewed. A familiar path looks beautiful again because you are seeing without the veil. When fear no longer clouds your mind, you begin to notice the source everywhere, in a raindrop, a smile, even in the people you once avoided. You realize no one is truly your enemy, only a messenger carrying your lesson. Removing the blindfold is a lifelong process. There will be moments you think you see clearly, then discover another layer. Do not be discouraged. Each time that happens, you are moving closer to your center. You do not need perfection to shine, only honesty to be real. When you dare to look at your darkest parts without judgment, light finds its own way in. One of the most powerful ways to keep the eyes of the soul open is to practice silence daily. Sit still, breathe slowly, and simply observe. Do not push thoughts away, do not chase a state, just watch. When you can look without reacting, you step away from the veil. Every moment of awareness breaks another thread, and then suddenly you realize that the light is not coming from outside to reach you. It is coming from within, shining outward. Murphy once reminded us, the light of truth is not brought from outside, it is awakened from within. When the blindfold falls, you no longer need to seek the divine in form, for you have recognized it in your own awareness. You no longer see with eyes, but with light itself. Try this now. Take a deep breath, exhale slowly, and whisper, I am ready to see with the eyes of the soul. I release every judgment. I allow the light to pass through me. Then let silence do the rest. In a few moments you will feel lighter, as if a layer has lifted from your mind. That is the instant you begin to see the world with true eyes. The eyes, the source placed within you from the very beginning. Let the heart lead. Within every person there are two voices, one of reason and one of the heart. The mind depends on logic, proof, and experience, while the heart depends on a deep knowing that does not need to be proven. When these two voices move together, your life flows easily like a river, for the mind and the soul are aligned. But when they are in conflict, you feel tired, confused, and lost. The answer is not to silence the mind, but to let the heart lead and allow reason to follow as the one that arranges the path. Joseph Murphy once said, emotion is the language of the subconscious, and the subconscious is the hand of the divine. This means that your heart, the source of feeling, is the first channel through which the source speaks. When you feel warmth, peace, or a quiet sense of rightness you cannot explain, it is not coincidence. It is the whisper of the divine within you, pointing the way. The mind may question, but the heart already knows. The world teaches us to trust reason because it feels safe. The soul teaches us to trust intuition because it is true. The mind looks at probability, the heart looks at possibility. The mind works with what is known. The heart leads toward what is yet unseen. That is why the path of the heart often feels frightening. It has no map or guarantees, yet it always holds life. Every step you take following that call leads to growth, even when the first steps feel uncertain. A person who lives by the heart is not driven by emotion, but by courage. The courage to trust the silence within more than the noise outside. When you act in harmony with the soul, you feel a gentle flow of energy throughout your being. Even if the world disagrees, you know you are not lost. The heart does not shout, it beats steadily, waiting patiently for you to listen again. The great question is, how can you tell the difference between the voice of the heart and the voice of the ego? The answer is simple. The ego pushes, the heart invites. The ego says, do it now or you will lose. The heart says, if it is meant for you, it will wait. The ego fears losing, the heart seeks what is right. The ego wants to prove, the heart wants peace. If after deciding you feel light, it is the heart. If you feel tense, it is the ego. The heart never leads you to destruction, only to understanding. Sometimes that understanding comes through loss, but loss creates space for something new. When you dare to trust the guidance within, even when the path seems dark, light will appear ahead, step by step, just enough for the next move. The divine never lights the whole road, only the next step. Remember, the mind is a flashlight, the heart is a compass. The flashlight lets you see the details, but only the compass shows direction. If you use only the light, you might walk in circles inside your own beam. But with the compass, you know which way to go, even in darkness. When both work together, you see and you know, And that is the strength of an awakened soul. Sometimes the heart will call you toward things the mind cannot explain. It asks you to forgive while you still hurt, to love while you still fear, to begin again when everything seems over. The mind objects, saying, it makes no sense. But the heart knows that the law of the soul is not the law of the world. The sacred does not follow formulas, it follows flow. When you move with that flow, doors that seemed closed begin to open on their own. Murphy called the heart the gatekeeper of belief. When this gate is closed, nothing from outside can reach you. When it opens, light passes through and miracles unfold. Practice opening this gate every day with small acts, saying thank you, smiling at a stranger, forgiving yourself, doing good when no one sees. Each act is the heart saying, I believe. And the law of mind replies, then receive. A person who lets the heart lead does not live in haste. They pause to listen. In meetings, they breathe deeply to feel. In anger, they stay silent to find their rhythm. In choice, they place a hand over the chest and ask, does this bring me peace? That moment is where the miracle begins, for that is when you place your will under the guidance of light. The heart is also the only place where you can hear the voice of the divine without words. It is the pure space where all thoughts fade and only presence remains. When you touch that space, you no longer need to ask, for you know everything necessary is already provided. From that stillness you act, and every action carries the power of wholeness. If ever you stand at a crossroads, do not seek the first advice from others. Find a quiet space, place your hand on your heart, and say, inner light, guide me in the way of love and truth. Then stay silent. Do not expect the answer in words. It will come as a feeling, an intuition, a coincidence during your day. And when it comes, you will know, not by reason, but by the soft certainty within. Life never goes wrong when you follow the call of the heart, for the heart is the channel through which the source leads you home, and every time you listen, you walk the straightest path, the path of light, peace, and truth. When light meets challenge, no soul walks in light without passing through moments of darkness. Challenge is not a sign you are lost. It is proof that you are moving deeper into awakening. Light reveals its strength only when it passes through shadow. Like a candle, you see its flame clearly, only when the room grows dark. In the same way, when life closes doors and you find yourself alone and uncertain, that is the moment when your inner light has the chance to be seen most clearly. Joseph Murphy once said, nothing comes to defeat you, everything comes to awaken you. Challenges do not come to punish, but to refine. They do not take what you need, they take what you no longer need. Yet in those moments, the mind does not understand. When you stand in the middle of the storm, explanations do not help. Only after it passes do you see that it swept away what no longer served your soul. Look at nature. Trees grow their deepest roots when the wind is strongest. Water glows when it is stirred. The same is true for the human spirit. Without challenge, there is no depth. Your light cannot grow in comfort. It needs friction to shine. Every hardship hides a lamp. Every wound is an invitation to witness your own strength. But when the challenge arrives, our first reaction is resistance. We want to escape, to return to what feels safe. Yet running never serves the soul. When you flee, you carry the darkness with you. When you face it, light begins its work. To face does not mean to endure. It means to pause and ask, what is this trying to teach me? That question is the torch of awareness. Once you ask, you open the door for light to enter. Murphy called this the law of energy transformation. When you change perception, energy changes direction. The situation remains, but its meaning shifts. Pain becomes teaching. Loss becomes beginning. Failure becomes the foundation of wisdom. Through this process, the mind is purified and faith becomes transparent. True faith is not measured by how many happy days you have, but by how you stand when everything falls apart. Anyone can believe when life is easy, but only those who hold faith in chaos understand the power of the law of mind. For when the world outside is in turmoil, within you is the only place where the source can be found. There is a truth, few see. Adversity is the test of love, not love for another, but love for life itself. When you are in pain, the source has not left you. It is waiting for you to love life again, even when it feels harsh. When you can say, I still trust though I cannot see, you touch the greatest creative force of the universe. In the midst of challenge, let your mind become still. Do not rush to explain. Do not try to understand it all. Just breathe. Just be. In that breath, you will sense a gentle energy holding you. That is life, the light that never fades. Even if you stand in night, the flame within is rising. If you have lost faith, know that it does not make the source distant. Faith may dim, but light never dies. It is only veiled by the mist of fear. When you return, with sincerity, even a small prayer is enough to clear the fog, for the source has never gone anywhere. It was only you who forgot. And one day, you will look back on your hardest hours and say, without that darkness, I would not have seen this light. Then you will give thanks for the tears, for they washed your inner eyes. You will thank your losses, for they taught you what truly remains. You will thank your loneliness, for it taught you to hear the voice of the soul. Faith is not blind, hope that everything will instantly be fine. It is the understanding that everything is serving the ultimate good. When you see this, you stop fearing change. You know that every upheaval is a tool to awaken your awareness. And my dear friend, let me ask you, have you noticed that the moments of greatest pain were also the moments of deepest clarity? Have you realized that what seemed to break you was in fact the beginning of your becoming? If you are walking through challenge now, know this: the light is not at the end of the road, it is in every step you take. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and say to yourself, I do not fear the dark, for the light is within me. I do not need to see ahead, for the source is guiding me. Then take one more step, and let the light inside you lead. For no matter how the world changes, the true light has never gone out. It is only waiting for you to believe once more. Keeping the light when there are no sins. There are moments on the spiritual path when light seems to disappear. What once moved you now feels empty. Prayer echoes into silence, meditation turns dry, and faith feels like a distant memory. You begin to wonder, have I lost the connection? Has the source left me? But the truth is, the light is never gone. It only withdraws so that you may learn to walk by the light within. Joseph Murphy once wrote, when the feeling of faith fades, it is not a sign of absence, but a test of maturity. A child needs a parent to hold its hand, but when it grows, the parent lets it walk alone. The silence of the source is not abandonment. It is the gentle invitation. You have enough light to continue. When all sacred emotions vanish, when you no longer feel the connection you once had, that is when the soul learns to live by the memory of light. Like a sailor who steers by stars once seen when the sun has set, you move forward not by what you feel, but by what you know is true. Emotion is the wave. Faith is the ocean. Waves may fall silent, but the ocean never disappears. When you no longer feel faith, simply act as though you still believe. That action is the mark of a mature soul. Young faith needs proof. Mature faith needs only remembrance. You do not need to see the sun to know it still shines behind the clouds. Keeping the light when there are no signs is the work of the bravest souls, for it asks you to trust what you cannot see, to walk when you feel uninspired, to love when love is not returned, to stay true when no one is watching. Yet in that silence, you become the purest vessel for the source to move through. Remember the times you felt hopeless, when everything seemed to end, and yet something small rekindled your trust. A meeting, a sunrise, a single word. Those moments were not accidents, they were reminders that the source never left. But if it always sent signs, you would never learn to shine by your own light. So sometimes it withdraws, letting you become the lamp that lights itself. Keeping the light does not mean denying darkness, it means accepting it without letting it choose your direction. You do not have to pretend to be strong, only to stay honest and keep walking. When you keep doing what is right, even without results, that is light working in silence. Murphy called this the winter of the soul. Winter does not mean death, it is the season of roots. Trees do not bloom, yet their roots grow deeper. The air is cold, yet the earth still nurtures. Likewise, in the winter of the soul, even when nothing seems to blossom, faith is rooting deeper and stronger. When spring returns, flowers bloom because the roots endured the cold. Through that season, keep small habits as threads connecting you to the light. Pray even when you feel nothing. Give thanks even when unmotivated. Help others even when unseen. These are the languages of the soul, not dependent on emotion. Each time you do, you are saying to the source, I still believe. And the universe always answers steadfast hearts. Remind yourself, light does not need to be felt to exist. Many confuse the feeling of the sacred with its essence. Feeling is expression, essence is being. You may not feel divine love, yet it is working in every breath, heartbeat, and living cell within you. In the silence, do not try to pull the light back. Let silence teach you how to see in the dark. That is the vision of the mature soul, sight that no longer depends on outer light but shines from within. When you no longer need signs to believe, your faith has become knowing. And something wondrous happens. When you persist long enough, when you keep walking without sight, suddenly the light returns, not loud or dazzling, but calm and steady. This time it comes not from emotion, but from understanding. You no longer need a miracle, for you have become the miracle. If you are in a dry season of the Spirit, do not blame yourself. Do not think you have fallen back. You are being taught the highest lesson, to trust without feeling, to love without proof, to walk without seeing the destination. Whisper gently to yourself, the light is still here even if I cannot see it. I trust the memory of light. I will live as though I am still guided. Then take one more step, just one, in silence. For each small step is the greatest declaration of the soul, I still believe. Returning to the light. After all the long roads, the dark seasons, and the heavy steps, a person does not truly go anywhere. They simply return to themselves. Every spiritual journey, no matter where it begins, ends in the simple realization that the divine has never left you and the light has never gone out. What you were seeking was never at the end of the path. It has been walking with you since the first step. Joseph Murphy once said, the source is neither above nor far away. It is your very breath, the stream of consciousness seeing the world through your eyes. When you understand this, all distance disappears. You no longer pray as one who begs, but as one who shares the same essence. You no longer search for miracles, because you realize that life itself is the miracle. Returning to the light is not a grand event, but a deep stillness. It does not come with thunder. It arrives in a quiet moment when you smile at something ordinary, when you see beauty in a falling leaf, in an old face, in a raindrop on the window. You are seeing through the eyes of the soul. When you forgive without reason, love without demand, and give without keeping count, you are living in the light. To return does not mean to withdraw from the world, but to live within it with an open heart. You work, speak, cook, and care for your family, yet inside you flows a quiet stream that never stops. You no longer need to prove because you already know. You no longer need to control because you trust. You no longer try to love because love has become your nature. One who has returned to the light no longer asks, how can I see the sacred? For they see it in everything. They see the source in every being, bring warmth wherever they go, not because they are perfect, but because they have dissolved the small self into the great current of life. When you are no longer bound by fear, you shine naturally, not through effort, but through presence. Someone may ask, how do I know I have truly returned? The answer is not in thought, but in peace. When you can sit quietly without needing to achieve, when you can look at the past without pain, when you can bless those who once hurt you, when you can look at life and say, thank you for everything, that is the sign you have come home. Murphy called this state the consciousness of oneness. In that awareness, there is no separation between sacred and ordinary, between you and others, between prayer and action. Every word becomes prayer. Every step becomes ceremony. Every day becomes proof that the source is working through you. Returning to the light is also the beginning of a new life, a life of carrying light into the world. You do not keep it for yourself, because light cannot be contained. You share it through kindness, through understanding, through being a living example for those still in the night. You do not preach, you simply show up. One peaceful person can change the atmosphere of a room. One loving heart can ease the pain of another with just a glance. Imagine you are a small lamp in the dark. You cannot light the whole world, but you can light where you stand. And when other lamps see you, they too begin to glow. Light spreads, not through noise, but through endurance. With every awakened soul, the world becomes brighter. One who lives in light no longer fears loss, for they know all things are forms of the same energy. When matter dissolves, energy remains. When someone leaves, love stays. When one path closes, another opens. There is no real ending, only transformation. And they smile at both arrival and departure, knowing that all things come from light and return to light. Returning to the light is also accepting your role as a messenger, not of greatness, but of wholeness. Each morning you may say, "Today I will let the light move through me. I will live with kindness, speak with understanding, act with love." And by doing so, the world changes a little. Light does not need crowds. It only needs one willing soul. You may still have weak days, still cry, still forget, but the difference is that now you know the way back. You know that with one deep breath, one quiet calling of the light within, it will answer. You have returned, and once you have returned, you can never truly be lost again. Before closing this journey, pause for a moment of silence. Place your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and say to yourself, "I know the light within me is real. I know the source is with me in every breath. I choose to live so that this light shines through me." Then open your eyes and look around. Nothing has changed, yet everything is different. The world is the same, but you now see with new eyes. That is the sign of one who has come home. The light is no longer within you, it is you. And when you live this way, you have completed the most sacred journey of the soul to become the very light you were once seeking.